Well, 3, 2, 1, go. Yeah. All right. Welcome to the October 2022 Raleigh Transit Authority meeting, and I actually had to check myself on the year. That's not good. I'm going to call this meeting to order and get us going. Let's start with introductions, and then we'll move to minutes and revisions. So we'll start with you, Linda.
Linda Davis.
LaPonda Edmondson.
Joshua Gill.
Nathan Spencer.
Jennifer Truman.
Bryce Connors.
Just in time.
Sarah Prato.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. All right, so we are, do we have an approval of the August minutes, motion on the table to approve that, or any comments? Does someone want to make a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Any
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. All right. Revision addition to the agenda. First, staff, do you have any?
No revisions or additions from staff.
All right. How about board members? Any revisions, additions? No? All right. Perfect. We have a short agenda, so I'm hoping that we are able to work through this fairly quickly. So no staff items, and at 3:32 we do not have, we're not ready for public comment, so we'll give folks until 4 o'clock to show up for public comment. So if we want to start with the staff information item, that would be perfect.
Thank you. So in the agenda within board docs, we did provide a calendar for the end of this calendar year, as well as calendar year 23. We have changed slightly the way that we are scheduling our meetings. The Transit Authority meeting, we have this room set second Thursday every month at 3:30. We can't really vary from that because this room is taken just about every other day of the week of every month. This is a very well-utilized room for sure. But our committee meetings, the way we had those set on a particular day of the month, they fell at really odd times before the Transit Authority meeting. And so we wanted to just always make the committee meetings the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday before the Transit Authority meeting on the following Thursday or the Thursday of the next week. So we have presented that within the calendar that you see within board docs. We've made a couple of changes because of July 4th, I think, and maybe one other holiday that impacted committee meetings. But everything else literally is, again, as you can see on the screen there, it is the week just before the Transit Authority meeting. And unless it's a July 4th holiday, for example, it would be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And since July 4th, we took that first meeting on Tuesday and switched that over to Friday in lieu of, obviously, that's a municipal holiday. Again, this is not for action today. We would bring this back, or will bring this back in November as an action item so that we can post this on the internet. So that we do proper posting for all the committee meetings and for the board meeting. But I'll be happy to answer any questions.
And just to note, November actually changes. So we have the end of November, beginning of December as the first dates. Is that what I'm reading correctly?
So there is another slide before this that shows the end of this month. So November and December. So for December, we had the strange occurrence where we actually would have committees and Transit Authority meeting in the same week. So we did roll back our committee meetings to the week before our Transit Authority meeting in December. So that you can see that it's the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the week before the Transit Authority meeting on December 8th.
Would the Transit Authority have committee meetings at the beginning of November as well?
Yes, November is just a traditional, we're staying with the traditional schedule for November because it doesn't act weird. But starting December and then through 2023, we are requesting that we follow the proposed calendars within your agenda package.
Any questions, comments from the board?
And thanks for that clarification. I did not make that.
Mr. Chair, I have one comment, which is just that the marketing committee meeting time may well change. We're polling our members right now to see what's the best time for everyone, but it would still be that first Tuesday or second Tuesday, depending.
Okay. Actually, that brings up an interesting point of committee times. Is there interest to change that? Do the chairs just want to manage that on their own with their own committees? I don't know. We were just talking about work schedules, so I don't know whether the time is good with.
Chair's probably is going to change of the.
Okay. All right. So. All right. So, and that's also something that we can adjust throughout the year if we have to, with people's schedules. So, okay. All right. With that, I think if we don't have any other comment, we can just move on. Okay, cool. All right, so lucky me, we're back to where Root starts first with committee comments, and that didn't take up any time, so we are still, we have 20 minutes until public comment, so why don't we get into committee reports. I'll go first with Route Committee. Route Committee was very much just an update to an update. It was very much, more information coming. Staff is working on the Wake Transit Plan bus update. There are no major projects in it, just the bus plan in there. And this is looking forward over the next few years what the plan will be to doing this. So every year we do a work plan where this is what we're going to do in the next 12 months. This is what the projected next few years will look like. So that is being ironed out. It will come to, it will be presented to committee in November, and I believe then presented to the full board in November, and then there will be full open comment in January on it. So that is to come. A couple things that were sort of teased actually yesterday in conversation. Cara Lee and Falls of News are suggested to go to 15-minute service. They are getting a huge amount of traffic, and then some reforms of other services that are not performing as well. So we're just looking at that. And there has been a look at how bus service will be adjusted for BRT as BRT comes online on New Bern, because that has been a topic at the meetings. Yes, please.
Before you get to the next item, so on the Wake Transit bus plan update, just so I understand, I'm assuming staff is getting input that's coming from the TPAC on what those updates should be, and then we're responding to that. I mean, I know our staff's having a lot of input with the TPAC about what those updates should be in terms of which route should increase in frequency.
There's input from TPAC. There was also public comment over the summer on some pieces of it. So they are using all of that and then coming basically with the final draft to us in November.
And how, I am curious, since I know that we've had all the bus systems have had to scroll back, at least temporarily, some of the routes and the frequencies because of the operator shortage. At the same time, I'm assuming that the transit plan is talking about increasing frequency. So how are those things meshing for the next year or
That
two,
is
or is this a long-term?
Really good question, and I'm not sure we have an answer for that. I know it came up in committee, but I don't think there was a full answer in terms of knowing exactly how that's going to impact. This is more towards if this is the plan and we're hoping that it follows through. Is that sort of,
Yeah,
correct
I would
them.
say that generally, well, not generally. I would say that from a prioritization standpoint, our priority is to reinstate those services which have been scaled back, which we view as our core services. So those are services that have been occurring long-term, and we had to take back the frequencies for what we hope is a short period of time. We have a couple of packages that have already been funded through Wake Transit that what I call are kind of in a queue. Generally, and that's where I was going with generally the Wake Transit plan will prioritize implementation based on funding availability and the years of implementation throughout the plan. So we'll have several of those implementations that are funded and ready to be implemented. We already have at least two, and we'll have another one coming up in FY24. So again, we'll knock those out in order of priority as defined by the Wake Transit Plan. That could change by a couple of different ways. That could be a request from the board or from staff to TPAC and reprioritizing the implementation schedule of some of that. But I would foresee that we would implement those in the order as funded by Wake Transit. Because the public participation for those elements did happen in a sequence. And so I think it would just make sense to certainly if that older package had earlier public participation and individuals know that service is coming and they're waiting for it, we would want to implement that first. But that's just my thoughts on how we would hopefully get ourselves out of the hole we're in and continue to move forward.
Thanks.
that help?
That is helpful, thanks.
Okay.
I know it's a tough job making it all come together.
The other items that we discussed, similar to the bus plan update as an update, preview to an update, the O&M, the operation and management contract RFPs had just sort of closed, and staff was looking through the four received proposals. So we'll get an update in November regarding how that process is going. Route is keeping a very close eye on this and hoping to be able to watch how we include operators and others in the process. And then again, microtransit RFQ, they had staff had received 6 proposals, interviewed 4, moved to 2 to a second round, and are working on have awarded 1, but are beginning the conversation right now. So at the time of route, they had not. They were not in a place where they could publicly go with telling us which one. But the 2 finalists are Spiro and Via. So that will get another update in November, and we'll be able to go from there. So that was route. It was fairly quick, and we will go on to the next committee if there's no questions.
All right, for finance and policy, we looked at the budget outlook for Go Raleigh Access. For the month of August, year on year, there was an increase of 29% an increase of 29% in the number of trips taken. So that's a huge increase. An increase of about 32,000 trips to 42,000 trips. This equated to a year-on-year cost increase for the month of August of about 40%. Ultimately, this large increase in Go Raleigh Access means that we're going from an $8 million program to a $10 million program this year. So, fairly significant increase. And looking for ways to potentially manage some of those costs. Staff are looking at the microtransit. So they've talked to the microtransit people about this RFQ for potential microtransit zones that City Council had requested information about, saw the technology and realized that technology could easily be ported over to Go Raleigh Access, allowing for tracking of where vehicles are. A lot of Go Raleigh Access is private taxis that don't have tracking of point to point or anything about how many miles it took or what distance it or how much time it took, that kind of thing. So using this microtransit app, which would be on phones or tablets or whatever, to kind of replace the system that they have for running Go Raleigh Access. Yeah, and I thought it was a pretty cool idea and something that we're gonna hear more information about and then continue to get updates on.
Thank you very much. All right, next committee, marketing.
Okay. Andrea, are we doing any slides today or no? I'm just doing a summary, right? Just a summary. Okay. So at the last marketing committee meeting, we had requested from staff to provide an overview of what all they have been doing through marketing and advertising through the basically we're calling the 4-ad campaign, but this was money that we received for 1 year from the Wake Transit Plan, the TPAC, of $250,000, and it was a pretty aggressive and really first time ever such a large marketing campaign that Go Raleigh has done to really get geared towards building ridership. And we've talked about it some in here, but we wanted to have a review of what all staff did do with the funds and really looking at some lessons learned from that, because our hope is to expand this and going forward and actually request increasing funding going forward. Because what we learned from this ad campaign, which was basically run between July, well, I'm looking at the numbers now, I'm confused. It was June 20, I thought it was July 2021 through June 2022, so recently ending. However, funds, that was a $250,000 campaign. We currently have $50,000 from the Wake Transit Plan that staff is continuing to use for targeted ads. In fact, I just saw in my hard copy newspaper one of our ads that I meant to bring in just yesterday, or was it today even? Doesn't matter, in any event. So I wanted to just target or highlight some of the key things that we learned and some of our key discussions that we had, because we're really looking towards the future. And I really want to underscore, we've never spent so much money. We've never tried all the different avenues that staff did, and I really commend Andrea Epstein and her staff for trying out a lot of different avenues. Funds were used on print ads in multiple different outlets, radio ads, digital media, social media, billboards, even advertising at Mudcats games, just to kind of see what kind of response we got and hits on our website. And I realizing skipped over the education campaign, but I'm going to come back to that. But basically, the key points are that during the time that we were running those ads, we saw our website numbers really go up in terms of views. They were up 42% from the previous year, and unique views or clicking was up to 52% from the previous year. So particularly given where we were at a time of COVID, when ridership was down, we believe that indicates that the money spent really did result in more engagement with Go Raleigh, and is in part of the reason why, even though our numbers are not at pre-COVID levels in terms of ridership, we are above the national average. And I think we may have sent around, or some of you may have seen the article about the Charlotte system, which is ridership's extremely down. We're at 80-some% pre-COVID numbers, and nationally the numbers are in the 60 percentile. So we believe that the marketing has really made a difference. I also wanted to mention that, and we've talked about this before, that we're continuing this year doing the WRAL 101 radio marketing campaign that is taking place at, what's the word I'm looking for? Rush hour. So the traffic, we're doing it's the traffic sponsorship. And again, we're continuing to see really positive response from that. So, coming out of all that, our committee put together some key points that we wanted to share with you, and that we're going to share with the TPAC, which is that not only that we think that this campaign made a difference in terms of ridership and in terms of interaction with our website, but we also, these are some key lessons learned. One, that more funding will allow us to really do a deeper dive into focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion with our outreach in different markets and in terms of our riders. We also realized that some things we spent money on, such as the Triangle Business Journal, really were not at all cost effective. I mean, it was costing us like $50-some per click, where other responses were much cheaper. And it also emphasized that we really need to establish a strong digital infrastructure, and we really believe we need to invest in some kind of Meta Business Manager or Google Ads Manager going forward, so that we can be as effective and timely as possible with our funds. We definitely still need to expand our social media advertising and outreach, and we hope to do that. We're short-staffed right now, but we're currently hiring for another marketing analyst, so we want to put a special emphasis on that. And overall, as I said, we want to be efficient with our funds with lower cost really per click. And that's one of the best ways we can actually determine what is, along with ridership, what kind of interaction we're getting. So our plan now is to go back to TPAC and say we want to increase our funding for marketing from $50,000 per year to $200,000 per year. And we also asked the question, what are the other GOs currently being funded at? And right now, Go Triangle is around $150,000 a year, and Go Care is actually above $60,000 a year. So given that our system is much larger and we reach more people, we feel like that is appropriate to be asking for more funds. Following up on our meeting of last year and referencing back, of last month, and referencing back to one of our key goals that came out of our retreat, which is expanding ridership and interacting with the public more, we believe this is really crucial. So, and on top of that, we will continue to request in our budget, currently it's about $150,000 that we have gotten consistently most years for our own internal and more traditional advertising and marketing that we have done with funds we get from the city of Raleigh. And most of those funds have gone in the past to swag that we hand out at marketing events, and also special advertising for the state fair riders, because for a lot of folks, that's the only time they ride the bus is when they're going to the state fair, and we put a lot into that. Except this year, because we're not providing service this year because of our driver shortage. So I hope that all makes sense, and I'd be glad to answer any questions. And I do also want to talk a little bit about what we're doing in special outreach with our TDM staff, with education partners. But I can come. You want to ask a question now, or should I?
Go for it.
Did also get some updates from our TDM staff, or Transportation Demand Management staff, that focus on basically community partners to encourage people to get out of their cars. It's not just riding the bus, it's walking and biking. And they have been doing some special events with Wake Tech, with NC State, with some public schools in Wake County. They also they added a special presentation for something called the Youth Legislative Assembly. And these are all presentations which are really just trying to encourage students to understand how to use the bus system and to remind them that it is free. And one of the points we made, the committee made, is that we wanted to learn more, put increasing emphasis on annual interaction with all of our education partners, in particular the Wake County school system, being more aggressive in reaching out and encouraging them to do annual outreach to their students, which they have their own communication structure that we can't necessarily access.
Thank you. Are there any questions regarding her update? Okay. I do have one myself. Is there any interest from the committee to advertise, especially since we have it till 2023, the idea of free fare, or fare free, almost like it's, very often we'll see marketing campaigns where they talk about, we'll giving it out, and then, later maybe you'll pay for the next one you actually buy, but that fare is free, and that at least through June 2023.
Well, I do know that we have been doing some advertising around that, particularly with the traffic report radio ads. Those messages have been included, and I also know in social media.
Okay.
Andrew, is there anything else you want to add to that? But that being said, it doesn't mean that we couldn't consider doing increased advertising around that.
Sale. Just in time for the holidays. That's cool.
At the same time, given our conversation yesterday about free fare, I'm not confident that we want to spend a lot of resources on that, but we could certainly bring it up at our next marketing committee meeting.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Sorry, I did have a follow-up question. I think I was asking about the education partners last time, and I wasn't able to make it to the meeting, but I'm just curious if there's specific marketing collateral that we provide to Wake County Public Schools. I think most of us get a weekly email from the principal, and there's usually flyers from all the different things that people have sent them to send out. And so if we had a particular flyer for Commute Smart or something that could go out in that type of communication, maybe if we make it as simple as possible, then Wake County would be able to use their communication system to push it out, instead of saying, our website has information, but make a specific collateral piece.
I think that's a fabulous idea.
Okay.
And the last time that I know we did that for sure was when the decision had been made to expand youth passes through age 18. There was a concerted effort led by Go Triangle at the time to reach out to the Wake County school system about how can we get that specific message, and they were providing information. But I don't know that that's been happening since then. And I do think it's a great idea for our universities and as well, and colleges, but also the school system communication. And I remember having conversations specifically about this. It's complicated because each school has their own information, and then Wake County school systems have their own information, but if there's a way that we can ask again and to actually provide really simple info, it's a good idea. And I think maybe that's something we could ask the TDM staff to really go after. Yeah,
I think that was my thought. Was just if there was capacity for us to make something, so the ask is simpler for them. There's not a bunch of coordination, but just hey, here's this thing, announce it, please. Just thinking that school is a big part of how people think about their commute. So it's not just necessarily going to work, especially for moms. But yeah. Thanks
No,
for considering
It's a
it.
great idea. Thank you.
It's funny that you should bring that up because there's a survey that just came out in the last couple days regarding
From who?
from Wake County Public Schools about the time schools start and looking at making high schools actually start later because there's research to say that teens need more sleep. But I think that this is probably an appropriate time to be thinking about that and our connection with them.
Karen, correct me
Yes.
if I'm wrong, but staff did give a presentation on some of the educational partnerships at the meeting we had last Thursday, and I wanted to commend Mason. He's done a good job of getting to, I think, Moore Square Magnet, East Wake, and Rise Charter are some of those institutions that we've got boots on the ground with. So to answer your question, there is some efforts going that way.
Yes, at specific schools.
Yep.
And we have 100 and some public schools, which is part of the complexity.
So many schools. All right. Cool. So if there are no more questions, all right. It is right at 4:00. CJ, do we have any public comment? No public comment. All right. Well, in that case, are there any updates that board members want to?
I'd like to hear the TransDev report.
I'm sorry.
I'd like to hear the TransDev report.
Okay. Is there a representative from TransDev, Byron?
Yes, we have Byron Bryant.
Afternoon, everyone. So similar to last month, we're going to do a quick report on the incidents that you've asked to be kept up to speed on. So for the reporting month of August 2022, there were a total of 42 incidents reported. The vast majority of those being the infamous operator complaint in / other category, 3 passenger complaints, 1 passenger injury, and 4, unfortunately, confrontation between passengers. Speaking to the passenger injury, that's not necessarily always an injury. That's a lot of times maybe just be an injury claim that we have to track and report. All right, this is the year-to-date that we've been keeping track of. So year-to-date, we have 247 incidents reported. 165 of those, again, that infamous other category. And I think a couple of months ago, there was the idea and concept, and maybe this is related to ridership increases and decreases. It seemed like there may have been a trend line there. This month doesn't follow that kind of trend line. The ridership is up, but the number of incidents reported is down on the month.
I'd be interested, I mean, this is just David Eatman talking, but if you put the average temperature or high per day, I wonder if it follows that. If you just think about what's going on. So just a thought.
That follows more with what RPD and I have a conversation about weekly. And this is the missed trips report for August. So this was actually presented last month, a month ahead. So again, the reporting month for this October meeting is August. But I did also, because I thought it might be asked, I did also go ahead and put September in as well. And then maybe next month we'll just start tracking the reporting month. So for September, we did have, we are seeing an increase on Sundays. It may not really appear that way. Just jump back. So looking at the missed trips, we went from 68 to 75 missed trips on Sundays. However, September did have an additional day because we do operate Sunday service on the holiday. So Labor Day holiday, we would have been operating Sunday service. So an entire additional day, we only saw an increase of 7 missed trips. Ideally, that number be 0. And just keep in mind, this does include a small number of missed trips that we typically would miss with bus breakdowns and incidents that take place that delay service or interrupt service.
I'm sorry, Byron, I have a question. What do you mean by missed trips? Like, is that just the bus besides breaking down what can cause a missed trip?
So there are several things that cause a missed trip. The primary reason for this report is due to operators not being available to operate the trip.
Sorry, go ahead. Do you want to?
Oh, I was just going to ask, the service reduction began partially through September, is that correct?
Correct, September 11th.
Okay, so we would have hoped to see this number go down in September?
Correct, ideally.
Okay.
Being very transparent, Sundays have been rough for us this month, even with the reduced service, but there's no reduced service on Sunday. So it's the exact same number of trips scheduled for Sunday as previous.
Why is Saturday so high in comparison to August, but they're reduced?
It's a
Do we
weekend
know?
day.
I'm sorry?
It's a weekend day.
Okay.
What we might be able to do is, in the future, we could just maybe in parentheses or brackets to the side, put the number of weekdays and number of Saturdays and number of Sundays. Because I think sometimes, I know that on our other reports as well, you really have to know how many weekdays, Saturdays, and Sundays are in the month. Depending upon how they fall, it can have a big influence, especially on those weekend and holidays with your statistics. So just a thought there,
Do you
but it might
mind-
normalize it a bit.
Do you mind going back one and just, because I'm taking a look at, okay, yeah, because there were more trips on, it seems to be that there were more missed trips on Saturday despite there being fewer buses during the month.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. We'll keep monitoring.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did have a question about the complaints. You said the complaints to date are 160 some from under operators and other, 165. Can you share what types of complaints you're hearing from operators?
And shame on me, I promised last month that I will come up with a better nomenclature. Other, just general, is probably a better nomenclature for this category. It just happens to be what the safety department put into the spreadsheet that this feeds from. But this could be anything from an operator saying there's a low-hanging limb near a bus stop to there being a bad pothole in the road where we service. So it varies immensely.
Is it about complaints about what's happening on the bus?
No, ma'am. So these are generally more like site reports. So they'd be better suited to go on a site report form, generally speaking. But again, it could be anything. It could be the bus was dirty on a particular day.
Okay.
It literally could just about be anything.
So what's happening on the bus would be under operator verbal confrontation or assault on an operator or confrontation between passengers?
Correct. The more unfortunate but interesting things, yes, ma'am.
And I know you haven't been here in past years, but do you know if those numbers of incidents are happening more this year than in past years? Or do you have any comparison on that?
Unfortunately, we do not. So the incidents are produced on a paper form. We have started going back into 2021 to put that into a spreadsheet to try to gain a comparison from this current year to last year. But going much beyond that might be beyond the resources of our office.
That's why we're tracking it now.
Yes.
Can I ask a question? Because I was thinking about looking at these earlier months, we don't have the data, and maybe that's why those months were lower in terms of incident reporting, but we have been able to go back? Like in January, February, March?
Correct. So we did start, I believe, in June, I want to say, and we did catch up to the current date and then started working back. So that's why we have these previous numbers for this current calendar year.
Okay, so the data going back to January is complete? All that's been entered in?
Correct.
Okay, so it's just that we're seeing the increase at the later part of this year. Okay. And then for the assault on the bus, what's included in that?
So that involves an assault that takes place on the bus, but that does not involve the bus operator. So that is two passengers interacting.
Okay, so it could be, I guess that one incident could also be like the passenger, it's not the passenger injury.
Correct. Those will be separate incidents.
Okay. Thank you.
Byron, one more question about the missed trips. Besides getting more operators, what else is needed to lower those missed trips?
That's the that's the primary solution. There are things that we can finagle to mitigate, and we're working on those operational efficiencies. Play around with the extra board and those sorts of things.
I would also add that working at other transit agencies, I would say that we did not have the benefit of having a average fleet age of about 6 years. So Federal Transit Administration requires us to keep all of our buses for 12 years. And we have an average fleet age of right at 6. Actually, I think we're a little bit too new. We're about 5 right now is average. That between 5 and 7 is a perfect fleet age because you don't want all of your fleet new because that means it all gets old at the same time. And you don't want all of your fleet old, obviously, because those are breakdowns and missed trips. So in my career, I've never seen a operator shortage like we're experiencing nationally. APTA, I will send the board American Public Transportation Association report that just came out. It is a national issue. But traditionally, without that, it is usually mechanical issues that create those missed trips. And I have seen that get really bad as well if you have failing equipment. So just a bit of commentary there. Thanks.
I have a. Go ahead, Linda.
I have just one question on the other slide. What are passenger injuries or I guess is that the list for August and September? Passenger injuries, are they usually related to accident reports or I just wondered if there is no accident, what would be those 25 passenger injuries?
It could be a trip and fall or slip and fall, boarding the bus or at the platform. It could be someone that fell asleep on the bus and wasn't awake and aware when the bus came to a stop and leaned forward and bumped their head. Various things.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
I just had a question about our service, like customer service procedure when we are missing trips. Because I've definitely been at the bus station and heard people complain about it. I've seen it online and heard people complain about it. So I was just wondering if you could update us on, like, how are we handling that? Is there support needed from the marketing team to handle that when someone is left behind by the bus or doesn't have the last bus isn't going to leave the station? Like, what is the procedure, and can we make that available for our customers to know how to get their service when it's not there?
So the best way is to utilize Go Raleigh Live and Transloc. So that information is provided to the regional help center. So that information is sent from our dispatch desk as soon as we're aware of it, that a trip is going to be missed. And then they push that information out on Transloc. And I believe I was on a meeting this morning. They also use social media as well. Locally and on the ground, that information is fed to the employees in the booth at the Go Raleigh station, as well as the Go Raleigh road supervisors who are actively patrolling the station.
So as a member of the public, if I'm at the bus stop and I don't have my phone on me, or I don't have a smartphone, and the bus doesn't come, what do I do?
Hopefully the sign, the Go Live sign is still available. Well, you don't have your phone, you can't even call.
So calling the phone number is the non-smartphone solution?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then I think I asked this at last meeting, and you said that sometimes there are rides available, but so the solution offered is telling them when the next bus is coming, or are we still making up rides if it's the last, or if it's dark, or?
So that's primarily during the last trip situation. We have given rides throughout the course of the day. Again, don't share that information, even though this is a public meeting. But we have had certain situations where even in the middle of the day, a passenger misses the bus and is running for the bus, and we have good coverage at GRS, so a road supervisor will just give them a ride.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, may I follow up on that one question? Is that common knowledge that if it is the last trip, for instance, that there's a ride available? If I were to call the Go Raleigh service line and say, hey, my bus hasn't come, then what do they say?
So generally speaking, that should be communicated in person by the road supervisor. So the road supervisor should have a strong and very visible presence at the end of service each day as they close down the station.
I mean, it's like a bus stop, like not at the station per se.
So in that circumstance, similar to what Ms. Jennifer and I just talked about, there's not a really easy way digitally to communicate to someone that's at a bus stop outside of the station.
Okay.
It's particularly if they don't have their phone. But again, that information is shared with the regional staffing center that can communicate that information, as well as the dispatch staff when that service shuts down.
Okay.
Can we look at alternative solutions? Because if our mistrip percentage is going to keep going up, even if our service is going down, I just want to make sure we have alternative solutions that someone who's at a bus stop isn't waiting. Like, can we talk about that in committee in more depth?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. I think that the important thing is at the end of the day, we want to clear the station. So obviously, that's always going to happen. You start getting to your last trip. Your last trip is outbound, and you do have some inbound trips as a last trip. And I can't speak for Byron. I don't know if every single one of the inbounds are covered, but certainly we'll always want to make sure that everything going outbound, so everybody get home, is covered, and I'm sure that that's occurring. As far as further explanation in committee, I think that's a perfect place for it in route committee or wherever the chair would like to put that. But we can provide additional information. I would also say that some of the data that you're seeing today, you actually have August data, which is before we made a reduction, and you have September data, which is half of a month of data. And so you don't really know, we don't have it stratified by day, so we don't know how much occurred in the first half of that month. So we won't get true data until we have a full month of October. And then we can really start, thinking about, what are next steps and how do we improve this beyond even this effort. So I just wanted to bring that up, but thank you. I think committee would be a great idea.
I had figured I'd suggest that we, for the time being at the route committee meetings, we get an update regularly on the mistrip and driver update, because my assumption also is that despite frequency reduction, we also raised fare in August, or raised pay in August, July, August. So we are just starting to see an increase, hopefully, in training. So hopefully we will see this reduction, but I don't want us to be caught unawares January and looking at this and going, oh wow, we weren't tracking this. So let's plan to get an update on that. Any other questions for Byron?
I guess just taking a step back to, just given that we're, seeing that the missed trips are really associated with driver shortage, how are those efforts going across the board in terms of recruitment and retention?
So we had a very successful job fair, which is typically not the way we recruit in the transit industry. In late August, we just recently had a second job fair, not quite as successful, on the 8th of October. In addition, we have not got September numbers for applications yet, but we did see a sharp increase in applications along the lines that Nathan just mentioned, with the increase in wages going from 30 to 40 applications monthly to, in August, 124.
Oh, wow.
So the marketing efforts, thank you, Ms. Karen, thank you, Ms. Andrea, and the wage increase have paid great dividends in getting interest. We're hoping that over the corresponding weeks will result in a lot of trainees finishing class.
Thank you.
Can I just follow up on that? I remember at one point you mentioned there was issues with the permits or something with the DMV was delaying their abilities to
So it
get
is-
on board. Is that still happening?
That still is an issue. We are working on a non-traditional solution to that issue.
Okay. Any other questions?
An operations policy question, so I don't know if that's now or in a minute.
Yeah, go for it. We have the time in this meeting.
Sorry. I am curious where we landed on policy for boarding and which doors you go in and out of on the bus, because I have seen everything under the sun in my own bus ridership over the last several months, and I'm just curious. So I thought we had made a decision of where we were headed, and I don't remember what it is now because I've seen every possible combination of which door you go in and out of. So is there a policy that we're following?
So there is a policy. Boarding through the front door is the policy. You can exit through the front door as well. We're not having a hard policy on that to this point, in exiting through the rear door. So that is the official policy.
Then I guess I will say that there are many routes and many buses that are not opening the front door, even if the customer is standing at the front door. So this is just an FYI, I guess.
So we have received some reports, feedback along those lines, and we have pushed out communication to the operators, reminding them of the official policy.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. I'm glad to hear that hiring is doing well. We will keep monitoring it. Let's plan for route to touch base on it. So please be available next month for that. All right. Any other items that board wants to hear, see, or talk about? All right. Well, if no public comment, then it's 4:23, and I'll call this meeting to close for the October RTA meeting.